How's it going? Welcome to Chats with Spencer. For interviews just like this one, full of fun and interesting questions, subscribe. New videos every Tuesday and Friday. My guest this week is a Twitch musician, Jack, aka Youngsub3. Before the pandemic, Jack was a sports broadcaster, but shifted towards music. Jack has a very laid back vibe, he's kind, and plays great music. Definitely check out his stream, a link in the description below. I had a great time talking with Jack about music, sports, and a whole bunch of other things. So enjoy my interview with Jack. Jack, thank you so much for joining me. I'm really excited to have you here. How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. It's Friday, so this was my first week. I'm back in university, back in college. Those classes just started this week, so first week's done with. It's the weekend, so can't complain really.
For sure. School is always tough. I'm glad I'm not in school right now. All right, Jack, can you just tell us about growing up, maybe like where you grew up, what kind of kid you were, maybe some interests you had, and if you can think of a story that kind of like sums up who you were as a kid, go for it.
Okay, sure. I have lived in Minnesota pretty much all my life.
Okay.
I'm definitely a hometown boy. Grew up in the Twin Cities area here in Minnesota. As a kid, what was I like as a kid? I was very shy. Um, I wasn't much of a talker. You go to you interact with kids. There's always the kids that are really hyperactive. They love
Mhm.
all the attention, and then there's the kids that are usually kind of quieter. That kind of keep to themselves. I was definitely a quieter kid.
Okay.
I like to think that I didn't get into much trouble. I'm sure I did. But I would say growing up, I was definitely on the quieter side. Um, and and yeah, I guess I'm still pretty shy. Like I definitely through experience and work and life, you definitely learn to open up a little bit. But I would say I've always been kind of a quieter person for the most part.
Were you into music and sports as a kid as well?
Um, I was into yes, sports definitely always.
Okay.
Um, I had a hockey. Being from Minnesota, it's almost like customary that you learn how to play hockey. So I had a hockey stick put in my hand pretty early, and then that kind of fueled my passion for just being active and loving that whole scene. Music, it took me a little bit of time to come around on. I took piano lessons as a little kid for a couple years, but then I got frustrated that I wasn't the next prodigy or whatever.
Hmm.
So I kind of lost interest in that after a few years. But in terms of other things, I guess I was into performance to an extent. My parents wanted me to audition for a commercial as a baby or like a toddler, um, for the Oscar Mayer sausages company, like the little
Okay.
tagline. I can't even remember now, but they brought me to an audition, and they wanted to see if I could be if I could be a child performer, and it did
Hmm.
not turn out. I was too shy to even go in front of the camera and audition. Um, but then growing up, music, I had a little bit of music influence. My dad is lives and dies by classic rock,
Okay.
so um, while a lot of kids grow up learning the Itsy Bitsy Spider and the ABCs and the classic kid songs, my dad was playing Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin while he was giving me a bath when I was like 2 or 3 years old. So I grew up with a lot of classic rock influence, pretty much all from my dad.
Is there one song that like particularly sticks out to you, Jack, that you just like have a really vivid memory of it?
Money by Pink Floyd. It's got like
Okay.
the cash register ching sounds going for the
Hmm.
first like 30 seconds, and I don't know how I remember this because I was only little, but I remember
Hmm.
getting a bath in our kitchen sink because I was still too small to bathe in the bathtub. I remember getting a bath in the kitchen sink, and I hear those those chings, those cash register chings over and over in my head, and I don't remember much because how do any of us really remember that much when
Hmm.
we were 3 or 4 years old? But I vividly remember hearing "Money" by Pink Floyd in the background when I was bathing. It's just the most
Awesome
random
story.
memory, but I remember it vividly.
You know, it's crazy what resonates with us,
Yeah,
right?
and I'm
But
sure
yeah, no,
it's
it's a cool
probably because I
story.
heard it 1,000 times too.
Jack, do you have a particular sports story, maybe from being a kid or even in from your teenage years? Maybe just it doesn't have to be something like a championship game, but maybe like a game you just played particularly well or something along that line.
Um, I I remember one of my most vivid sports memories, I would say, is it was my senior year of high school baseball. And
Okay.
we were the first team ever in our school history to make the state tournament.
Whoa.
And we were in the quarterfinals game. Um, and this memory sticks out like a sore thumb. We were in the quarterfinals game, state tournament. Bases were loaded. We were down by one, 2 outs, bottom of the seventh inning. We only played seven innings, and I was at the plate, full count, like literally like set the
Mm,
scene for like a walk
mhm,
off, like everyone mobs me, and I couldn't hit left. I was a left-handed batter.
mm,
I could not hit left-handed pitching to save my life. Just is always my biggest Achilles
mhm,
heel. And so full count, bottom of the seventh, pitch comes in right down the middle, and I
mhm.
watch it go by me. Strike three, we lose. Ends our high school careers. So I wish I had a better like. Oh man, like I won us a state tournament or I hit a walk. Nope, I struck out looking to end me and all my friends' baseball careers. So it's a little bit of a tragic ending, but that I mean that like something like that, and I'm sure as a 18-year-old, you know
Mhm.
that there's probably more to life than that, but at that time you're just thinking, man, like it's over. Like what else do I got going for me now? Like it's that's it. So for better or for worse, that's probably the highlight that stands out the most to be in my memory.
I mean, it's the good and the bad that we remember,
Yep,
right?
yep,
So,
yep, absolutely.
I love how you said the scene there, Jack. We're just like, oh man,
It's
he's
like,
gonna
oh
hit. He's
man,
gonna
I'm
hit it.
ready
He's
for
just gonna
this,
like
and then
knock it out of the park, walk off.
nothing.
So, Jack, do you remember the first album you ever bought as a kid, or maybe downloaded or asked for?
Um, I would say I really started like actually getting into music in sixth grade. So when I was probably
Okay.
about like 10 years old. No, does that math work out? Whatever, however old I was.
Yeah, yeah, that's roughly like
Uh,
11, 12. Yeah.
so I remember, like I said, growing up, I grew up with a lot of classic rock. But by then, by the time you like start getting old enough that you kind of want to be rebellious. Not
Hmm.
everyone has that, but I feel a lot of us have that angsty, just we're soon to be teenagers. We want to just, we want to fit in, and we don't like to listen to other people, what other people tell us. So at that time, I was finally like, you know what, Dad, I'm sick of listening to classic rock. I'm gonna throw that out the window. I want to find music on my own. So,
Hmm.
being a sixth grader, I'd moved to a new school that year, and I wanted to fit in. And so that was my first introduction to popular music. And the first CD that I ever asked for and ever got was Soldier Boy's "Crank That," or whatever the album was that had
Hmm.
Soldier Boy "Crank That" on the
Hmm.
on the album. That was the first CD that I ever owned, and I had a CD player with bright yellow headphones that I would bring on the
Hmm.
bus with me all the time. And because that was the only CD I owned at the time, I probably
Hmm.
listened to that thing 1,000 times. And looking back, I was like, "Wow, dude, you liked some really horrible music." Like, I mean, to each their own, but like in like
Yeah.
hindsight, like Soldier Boy, you know, I could have had maybe a better taste of music, but that was my first ever CD that I ever asked for and owned was Soldier Boy.
I think the big question, Jack, is do you still remember the dance?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Woo. I'm not gonna do it, but I mean,
Oh
I
man,
think
so
everyone
classic.
everyone learned that at some point.
Just in regards to sports, Jack, what can you just go over which ones you played and maybe like the ones you kind of like invested the most time in?
Sure. So I grew up playing hockey,
Mhm.
baseball, and football.
Okay.
And I played baseball and football all through high school. I stopped hockey around probably age, I don't know exactly when it was. And then I tried wrestling for a year, just
Okay.
just because I didn't have another thing to do in the wintertime. But I would say baseball was probably the one I invested the most time in growing
Hmm.
up. the at least in the sports world, a lot of people advise, hey, diversify your kids, teach them a lot of different skills. Don't just
Hmm.
specialize in one sport. So I played a couple, but I spent the most time in off seasons of those with baseball, personal training and such. And then one of my relatives was a player for the Minnesota Twins, Joe
Oh,
Mauer,
okay.
and so his brothers were both involved in baseball. One of his
Hmm.
brothers was a minor league baseball coach, so we
Okay.
actually hired him to be my private instructor in the off season growing up. So I spent a lot of time probably around baseball, but then, like I said, once I went to college, I always considered myself a solid athlete, but not the cloth wasn't cut for me to keep playing in college.
What position did you play in baseball?
I was a first baseman. I was being a lefty and being pretty flexible.
Hmm.
Being around first base was kind of where I hung out the most.
All right, Jack, is there one thing about you that people might find surprising? So this could be maybe like a hidden talent, an odd interest, something along those lines.
Um, I guess I mean the people that know me musically might not be as surprised, but
Hmm.
like I said, I grew up pretty much all around sports. I'm huge into musical theater. Like that's like a I
Okay.
don't even know if that's like a secret passion of mine at this point, but in terms of like interests, I did a little theater and acting growing up, just regular community theater. But I never really invested a lot of time in learning how to sing or dance, especially growing up. So that was never something I really pursued. Um, but I've always kind of had just like a really I've taken a liking to people that have those skills. That someone that can go out on stage and tap dance and belt at the top of their lungs and act, a triple threat basically for 2 to 3 hours at a time. And I find all musical theater music really catchy. And so, like I said, it's not necessarily like a secret
Hmm.
interest, but I guess for some people that only know the sports side of me, they would be like, really, really, like interested. So I would say being into musical theater for sure.
What's your favorite musical?
Cool. Oh, I don't know if I could narrow down
I'll
to
say
just
top three
one.
then.
Okay, that's fair. I would say the Book of Mormon, which
Okay.
is not family friendly, but the writers of South Park.
Hmm.
But to me, it's brilliantly written. It's obviously hilarious, and I don't mind a little bit of off-color humor sometimes. So I would say the Book of Mormon is probably up there. I like Les Mis. I like some of the classics, Les Miserables. Um, that's one that a lot of people identify with. And then I like the
Hmm.
Phantom of the Opera too. Like I just
Okay.
some of those classics. Uh, just some of those songs I used to just like put on Spotify in my car and just while I
Hmm.
was driving and just sing along with those. So I would say if I had to narrow it down to those three, probably those three.
All right, Jack, if you could visit any past time period, what time period would it be and why?
Um, like in my life or in history?
History.
Oh, okay. Um, I would, I would love to go back to like the 50s.
Okay.
Um, obviously the like real world there was a lot of issues going on back then, but
Yeah.
I love the influence of like the 50s and 60s, like doo-wop groups, like people
Hmm.
being able to go like grab their high school friends and go dancing, and there'd be live
Hmm.
music and bands, and people were just out having a good time, and I know like Grease, like the movie Grease, like plays that up a lot and probably
Hmm.
exaggerates a lot of it, but just like being in that era would be a lot. I feel like it would be a lot of fun. Like I said, real world, there was a lot of stuff going on back then, but
Yeah, for
but
sure.
in terms of like being able to experience some of like the really positive things, the really interesting things, I would say I would love to go back then and just live.
And just kind of on a similar line, if you could view any concert in history, which one would that be?
Any concert in history. I mean, I don't even know if I would be that interested in the music, but just to be at Woodstock,
Okay.
and experience like all the madness that you heard about
Yeah.
and read about, and like
Hmm.
the lore that's all behind it, and
Hmm.
just like I said, I don't even know if I would be there for the music. I would just like to like people watch, be like, what are these people? What do these people do? Like, what are they doing over there? So I would say just to be able to say, hey, I was at Woodstock
Hmm.
would be pretty sweet.
All right, Jack, we're going to switch pace a little bit. Just some less in depth questions, but if you want to stop me and elaborate, feel free.
Sure.
So, what's your favorite sports team?
Sports team?
Mm.
I'd say, I mean, I'm definitely a homeboy. Anything Minnesota. So I watch, the most I watch is probably the NFL or the
Hmm.
MLB. Um, so like the Minnesota Vikings, Minnesota Twins, but basically anything Minnesota, the Wild, the hockey team here in town. The Timberwolves are terrible, and I hope their franchise gets sold off somewhere else. I could care less about them.
Hmm.
But I would say any Minnesota team, and then because of my affiliations with college, I went to the University of Pittsburgh for a year,
Okay.
so I like following their athletic teams. And then I'm still at the University of Kansas currently, and that's where I was doing some sports broadcasting work for them. So I have a
Okay.
lot of investment in especially their basketball team, because they're usually one of the top teams in the country.
Yeah.
But I would say anything Minnesota or Pittsburgh or Kansas related.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs, 100%. I'm not positive, but I'm pretty sure I'm semi-allergic to cats. One of my good friends in high school, I always used to go over to their house and hang out. And
Hmm.
anytime, I would, I would pet their cat, and I would be completely fine. And then as soon as I got home, my eyes would just like puff out and become really red and irritated.
Hmm.
So I'm pretty sure I'm at least somewhat allergic to cats. But I've always been a dog guy. And then I worked in college when I was down in Kansas. I worked for a couple years at a humane society,
Okay.
and then we kind of had a choice, what kind of animals we wanted to primarily work with. And I was like,
Hmm.
get me over to the dogs ASAP. I'm a dog guy, 100%, 100%.
Spring or fall?
Fall. I'm a little biased. My birthday's in September, so I'm
Okay.
I'm a little biased to that. But at least here in Minnesota, like the fall is when all the leaves are changing on the trees. That cool, crisp, like sweater weather. That's what I live for.
Hmm.
Like obviously I mean I've lived in Minnesota for 25 years, so I don't mind cold weather. But
Hmm.
there's nothing better to me than going out on like a fall morning or afternoon where it's like 40 or 50 degrees, and like you're cool, you're comfortable, and enjoying life. Nothing wrong with spring, like springtime, and the winter's over for a lot of people, but to me spring is associated, at least here, with a lot of like melting snow and like really damp weather. So
Hmm.
I'm fall 100%.
M&Ms or Skittles?
M&Ms. I'm a chocolate guy. I would say, if I never really buy candy, but if I go out to like a gas station and I bought something, it would be chocolate and it wouldn't be sweets. So M&Ms all the way.
Do you have a particular favorite chocolate bar?
Um, it's changed. I used to be obsessed with Kit Kats.
Okay.
I love that texture, but I would say a good Crunch bar with that, with the like the rice in it. Oh man,
Hmm.
you can't beat it.
One of your favorite movies?
So I was an extra in a Christmas movie,
Okay.
like 5 years ago. So, for the sake of publicity, I'm gonna have to say that. No, I'm kidding. It was a really bad movie. It got like a 2 out of 10 on Rotten Tomatoes. Um, so I would say I love action adventure movies. Um, the Dark Knight Rises series is pretty, or the trilogy, I should say, is pretty intense. Um, and that would probably be my favorite. And then that was filmed, parts of those were filmed in Pittsburgh. So I got,
Okay.
being out there, I kind of got to see where some of the scenes were shot too. So I was like, dang, like not only is this is like a sick movie, like I've been to these places, like
Hmm.
that park that's in the background, like I've been there before. So I would say probably the Dark Knight trilogy.
And I gotta ask, what's the name of this movie that you're an extra in, Jack? Just so
Oh,
we know for
it's
reference.
called Love the Coopers. So it was a
Oh, okay.
Christmas movie. It came out in, I want to say, 2015.
Okay.
And I was in a men's a cappella group my first
Oh,
year in
okay.
Pittsburgh. And so our choir director knew of a casting and talent agency out there. He had
Hmm.
some close ties. And I don't know what it is about Pittsburgh. They have some kind of something about the state of Pennsylvania. They have some like tax breaks or something, so it's cheaper
Hmm.
for companies to film out there.
Okay.
But then they put out a casting call and they're like, "Hey, we need some people to just like be Christmas carolers in the background of the scene."
Okay.
And like 8 or 10 of us went and auditioned, and we had to sing for the producer and the director, and then I got a call back like a week later, like, "Hey, you're gonna be in this movie. Like, show up on this day with some paperwork." And all I did was walk down a hospital hallway and sang, and I
Hmm.
was on screen for about 3 seconds. But it was like the movie itself like was pretty terrible, but there was a lot of famous people in it, like John Goodman and Amanda Seyfried and Ed Helms and Alan Arkin and Diane Keaton. Like there were some big names, so that was pretty. And Olivia Wilde, that was pretty cool. So
Yeah, no, I've actually think I've heard of the title. So when you said it, I was like, oh, okay. It's not like I've never heard of
yeah,
it.
yeah. Some like independent movie filmed in like Taiwan or something. No.
So. Do you prefer adventurous or a relaxing vacation?
Adventurous. I love to go exploring. I love to
Hmm.
try new things. And I'm also a heavy planner. So like when I was in Ireland, my buddies were like, "Oh, we're just gonna play it by ear and we'll see what
Hmm.
happens." I was like, "No, I kind of want to like plan stuff out." So like whether it's tours or
Hmm.
visiting historical sites, I'm definitely more for like go. I would rather go to like Spain and visit some like historic sites than I would
Hmm.
go to Mexico and just drink and get tan. Like like that's
Hmm.
I'm sure that's fun, but I would definitely rather go visit somewhere where I could like actively be doing something for sure.
And it's definitely one of those things with like the beach vacations. I feel like I can do it for a day, but like
Yeah,
after
yeah,
that,
and then
it's
it just
just it
gets
gets
it
old really
gets old for
fast,
me.
man.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm 100% the same way.
Favorite childhood TV show?
As a kid, I would say Arthur.
Hmm.
On PBS, that Aardvark. I watched that show every day, every single day. And I think I still have some of the old VHSs of their collection. But then growing up, like I said, as a teen, like I was into whatever all my friends watched. So I
Mm.
remember one. I was like Drake and Josh, which is a ridiculous show. But being like 12, I was like, oh yeah, dude, like that show's phenomenal. And then SpongeBob. I watch SpongeBob too a lot. I feel like most kids watch SpongeBob.
Mm. Jack, if your next meal could be anything in the world, what would it be?
Anything in the world, I would have to say scallops and shrimp, like fresh scallops and shrimp. I worked in a fine dining Italian restaurant for 5 summers
Hmm.
through the end of high school and college, and so I got a nice taste for some like really fancy meals. So I would say if I could have a good spread of like roasted potatoes and fresh scallops and shrimp. Like I'm not a huge seafood guy, but when it's prepared right, oh man, it hits different.
What did you want to be when you were a little kid, when you grew up?
So I was as a kid, I did a lot of like dressing up and pretend. I wasn't allowed to like play video games much, or own any like fancy technology. And obviously,
Hmm.
like iPads weren't a thing when I was young.
Hmm.
But like I would say one of my biggest things was being a firefighter.
Okay.
I had an old rain jacket that was bright yellow and bright yellow rain boots that I used to dress up in and pretend I was a firefighter. And then we lived right down the street from a fire station, so anytime they had like an open house, I would always go visit and get to sit up in the big tank engines and ladder trucks. And I always had a dream of just being able to be a firefighter for the longest time.
Yeah, I feel like I had the same dream. Those fire trucks are just too cool, man.
Dude, they're so cool and they're so shiny and like they're bad. They're awesome.
What's your favorite song to perform?
Ooh, favorite song to perform. I feel like that's been revolving. So I've
Hmm.
only been like a performing musician for like 9 or 10 months.
Hmm.
So it's definitely different songs have grown on me. I would say one I can really get behind is "The Blower's Daughter" by Damien Rice. It's like a
Oh yeah.
slow ballad
Hmm.
song, and to
Hmm.
me, to be able to really get into a headspace where I'm feeling the emotion. That to me that's a song that's beautifully written,
Hmm.
and I feel like you can really put a lot of emotion and heart into that song. So anytime that um, that gets requested or I can choose to play it for people, I love the opportunity to do that. Any song like that that's just like more of like a ballad. I love
Hmm.
that kind of music performing wise.
If you could learn another instrument, which one would that be?
Ooh. For practical purposes, like if I could learn like the drums or something,
Okay.
I feel like that
Hmm.
would be cool. But if I was gonna go way out there, I would say the accordion. I've always, or no, either the accordion or the bagpipes. Like very, just like what the heck. But to me, like I find the bagpipes fascinating. Like I know a lot of people are like, I need earplugs. It's the bagpipes, but I just think it's fascinating. Same with the accordion. Like the fact that like people can like play keys on one hand and push buttons on the other while like doing three things at once, like just to be able to have that talent. I like and I there's no practical purposes, like you can't just like
Hmm.
sit on your front porch and play the bagpipes. But to be able to say, yeah, I played the accordion, or yeah, I know how to play the bagpipes, I think that'd be sweet. That'd be so cool.
And as a sportscaster, what game do you wish in throughout all sports history do you wish you were the color commentator for?
Oh, so that's tough. um I'm thinking like some of the iconic games, like the United States beating Russia in the 1980s, like that miracle game is an
Hmm.
iconic one. But also like because I'm a homeboy, the Minnesota Vikings in 2018 had a game in the playoffs
Okay.
where with 8 seconds left, they threw a Hail Mary and Stephon Diggs caught it, beat out a guy, and took it to the house, and they won on a walk off. And I was in a Buffalo Wild Wings, and I remember watching that with my buddy. And
Hmm.
this was down in Kansas, so we were like the only two Vikings fans there, but we had in our
Hmm.
jerseys. And I had like my head in my hands. I was like, okay, season's over. And then I watched the game, and I was like, holy crap. And then I just remember jumping out of my seat, and we were like
Mm.
hugging each other and screaming, just making absolute fools of ourselves in a Buffalo Wild Wings. And then I was like, if I got that excited watching in a restaurant, like I
Hmm.
cannot imagine like being able to be in that moment and to be able to to tell that story from behind the microphone. Like that, just that specific moment would definitely would have been the highlight of my career for sure.
Jack, if you could re-record any album, and not saying you have to cover it note for note, but just kind of like your spin on an album, which album would that be?
Oh, um, that's tough. I would say, well, are we talking like if I had all the talent to be able to do that? Because like I said, I've only been a musician for years. So if I could go back and if I could like record music with like the Beach Boys,
Hmm.
I think that would be cool. Just to to put a little of my spin on it. I love those like the barbershop esque kind of like
Hmm.
harmonies and songs. So if I could go back and if I could record music like with the Beach Boys or like in that style, I feel like that would be a dream come true for me. Absolutely.
Jack, you can let us know maybe a bit more about your music story. I know I know like on your Twitch page it says you started pretty later in life, like 18 or so. You like started guitar, and I guess is that as well with like singing. Just like how did you kind of make that switch?
Yeah. So I had, like I said, I had a little instrument experience growing up. I took piano lessons when I was little.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
And then in sixth grade, I had the choice band or choir. And at the
Hmm.
time, I was like, I want to play an instrument, and I really, really wanted to play the saxophone,
Okay.
but they told me my hands weren't big enough yet. Like I
Okay.
hadn't, I didn't hit, I hadn't hit puberty yet. So they're like,
Mm.
well, we don't know if your hands are big enough to handle a saxophone, so we're gonna start you on the trombone. I was like, the trombone, what the heck is that? Um, so I took band all through middle school and high school. I played the trombone for 7 years, 7 years.
Whoa. Yeah.
So I had a little, I've had experience, learning how to read notes and
Hmm.
stuff.
Hmm.
But then I knew that wasn't something I wanted to pursue forever, because sports were still the kind of the big focus of my
Hmm.
life at the time. So I kind of just did it to do it, honestly, which my band teacher, if he ever heard this, would probably not be super happy with, because he thought I should keep going and play in
Hmm.
college and join band and all that stuff. Um, and then it was my senior year of high school when I finally like got a real opportunity to sing.
Okay.
I decided I would not take a science class. It was my last semester of high school actually, and I was like, you know what, the senior slide kind of thing. I was like, you know what, I'm gonna take easy classes, and I was like, I've always wanted to sing. Like I want to take choir, so I took choir my senior year of high school, and that was my first ever like organized place to sing. And I had sung at my at church a couple times before that. Like around Christmas time, I
Hmm.
joined the church choir, but I never really got to like sing on my own or like sing as part of an organization before. Um, but fortunately, I realized pretty early on. I was like, hey, like I'm not half bad at this, and I really really enjoyed it. And so it was kind of from there that I decided like, hey, maybe this music thing, like maybe I should take this a little more seriously. And then But that was high school. So then I went to
Hmm.
college. My first year of college, I went for studying engineering in the Naval ROTC program. I had my whole life planned out. I was going to go to college,
Hmm.
study engineering, get my 4 year degree, and then part of the ROTC program is once you have your degree, you become an officer.
Okay.
And I was going to be a military officer and do my 20 years and retire. But then that didn't work out so hot. Found out real quick that engineering wasn't for me. But
Okay.
going through all that, I really didn't have a lot of time to focus on music at all. So
Hmm.
I sang a little bit. I was part of that men's group
Hmm.
my first year of college. But then after that, I stopped singing, at least like regularly. I obviously stopped playing the trombone, and I got my first guitar around that first year of
Okay.
of college. But I didn't really do much with it. I didn't sign up for legitimate guitar lessons. I just took to YouTube and I was like, YouTube, teach me what I
Hmm.
need to know. But again, I was so busy studying like 20 hours a day that and involved with the military stuff that first year. So I really didn't. I kind of put anything music related on the back burner. So it was around about age 18 that I started singing somewhat regularly, and then
Okay.
I'd owned a guitar
Hmm.
since then. But I used to pick the guitar up maybe once a month and just
Hmm.
play like the three chords that I knew how to play. And then I was like, oh well, I can't do any more, so I just put it back in the case and just left it sit there again until the next month. So
Yeah.
that was kind of how my music thing started, at least up till about that point.
And I just gotta ask, what was the name of your like quartet? I know they usually have like a funny name, so I have to ask.
We did not have a cool name. We were the University of Pittsburgh Men's Glee Club. That's
Okay.
how we were. So usually you get like the
Hmm.
aka rockers or something creative. No, we were
Some like
just
pun
yeah,
usually.
yeah, some usually pun. But no, we had a boring name.
I had to ask.
Yeah,
uh, okay, Jack, maybe can you share with us just like your experience on Twitch? I know you started, what was April 19th
yeah,
in 2020. So less than a year ago, you decide, hey, I'm going to go on Twitch and I'm going to do music.
yeah.
Like maybe can you just a brief some of how you got to that point, I guess.
Sure. So I had been working in sports broadcasting the past 2 years.
Okay.
As an undergrad at KU, University of Kansas, they actually have a really awesome setup that even as a student, you can still work basically entry level in the industry as a broadcaster. So while I was, in school taking classes, outside of my classes, I was working at a radio station in the
Mm.
city. I was broadcasting KU football and basketball games, and then the last year I was the voice of the university soccer team. So I got to
Mm-hmm.
travel with
Okay.
them all over the country and call their games.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing some really cool stuff. And like I would say the highlight of my career was probably as a 20-year-old, we got to travel with the KU basketball team in the March Madness tournament. And
Ooh,
I broadcasted their Final Four game from San Antonio, Texas, courtside.
nice.
So I don't think anything I do in life will probably top that. But then it came around to last March, and I was still involved, still
Mm-hmm.
broadcasting, and we were getting ready to do the whole thing again with them, travel with the team, follow them through the March Madness tournament,
Mm-hmm.
and then COVID.
Mm-hmm.
It was right before the turn. It was the regional tournament, which would have been like 2 weeks before the March Madness happened, and then the world shut down, and
Mm-hmm.
we got an email from our boss right away where they're like, travel's canceled, flights are canceled, we don't know if this tournament's going to happen. And then obviously it didn't, and a week later basically they told us that the entire athletics for the rest of the year uh, were shut down,
Mm-hmm.
and without any games, without any events, without anyone around, there was no use for us. So that's when I lost my work. And I was still taking classes, but then basically everything that I was doing outside of schoolwork was just didn't exist anymore.
That's fair.
I ended up coming home from spring break and never going back down. But then when I got home, I was like, you know what? I got nothing to do. Like all of my
Mm-hmm.
outside interests, all of my free time was either sports work or sports
Mm-hmm.
free time, and everything was shut down. Nothing was going
Mm-hmm.
on. So I was like, I gotta find something else to do. And I had made a Twitch account in 2019 to watch
Yep.
a gamer, because I occasionally would watch a video game player, and I came
Mm-hmm.
to watch Tim the Tap Man, and then I came back in March when I got home. I was like, you know what? I'm bored. Instead of turning on Netflix for the 300th day in a row, I'm just gonna flip on Twitch and
Mm-hmm.
watch Tim the Tap Man. And then I don't know how it ended up, but I saw on the top of the screen there was music. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
music? Twitch has music? So I clicked on the music page, and I saw a bunch of streams with people playing live music, and I was like, what the heck is this? So basically mid March to from mid March on, I started watching live music on Twitch.
Okay.
And I, like I said, I didn't even know it existed before then, so I
Mm-hmm.
didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know the whole community, but little by little, I just started watching a streamer here, a streamer there, and then finally, after about 2 weeks, I really got involved with a streamers community. My buddy
Okay.
Kieran T Music, he unfortunately stopped streaming on Twitch, but he was brand new as well. A lot of musicians at that time were like, "Well, we don't have gigs. We're gonna go to Twitch."
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of jumped headfirst into his community, and then little by little, I met person here, person there, and then it took me about a month being involved with his community, and I was like, "Well, I got a guitar. I sing a little bit. Like, should I try this thing?" And so him and I was a mod for him, and then
Mm-hmm.
a couple of the other mods and a couple of the other community members were like, "Just go for it, just go for it." And I told them, I was like, "I don't know what I'm doing. Like, I haven't done
Mm-hmm.
anything organized for like 3 or 4 years." But they're like, "Just try it." So my first couple streams, all I had was a phone. I didn't have a microphone. I didn't have a
Mm-hmm.
camera. I didn't have any gear or anything. Just a phone. But I just sat in my bedroom and I just played some songs. I think my song list started off with like 50 songs on it, and I sat down and I just played music, and then after about a couple weeks, people just kept encouraging me,
Mm-hmm.
and I started meeting more people, and it definitely wasn't the smoothest start. Like I said, I didn't have anything of a stream setup. I
Mm-hmm.
took a picture of my own stream ups of my old setup. It was a desk,
Mm-hmm.
two big textbooks that could prop up my phone, and my guitar. That was all I had.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I streamed for about a month on my phone. When I made Twitch affiliate, I was still streaming off my phone with nothing, with no overlays, no gear, or
Mm-hmm.
nothing. But then people were just really encouraging me. It was a small group of people. Granted, I averaged like 4 or 5 viewers my first couple months, but they just kept telling me, if it's something you like doing, just stick
Mm-hmm.
with it. And I just, you know, I still didn't know what I was doing, but I just kept at it. And 2 nights a week for about 2 hours, I would just turn on my phone and stream music. Um, and then I had a really generous stranger pop in one day, and he
Okay.
was like, "Hey, like I see, like you enjoy. It seems like you enjoy what you're doing." I told him, I was like, "Dude, I got no idea what I'm doing. Like this is this is way out of my league." But he gave me a really generous donation. He's like, "Go buy yourself a streaming PC and let's
Mm.
let's 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 make something out of this." So without that, I probably wouldn't have ever been able to get started like I did. But then for the first 3 months, I would say it was a really small. I was still
Mm-hmm.
streaming to a really small group of people, and then I'll never forget it. It was one week in June that I got 3 big raids just randomly,
Mm-hmm.
and then ever since then, things kind of took off, and it's been a whole baptism by fire experience. I use that line a lot because I was really
Mm-hmm.
just thrown into the ring without really any background knowledge or idea of what I was supposed to do or how I was supposed to do it. But yeah, that's kind of how I started, just kind of by accident and just
Mm-hmm.
deciding, hey, let's try this. And then obviously, 10 months later, we're still at it.
Yeah. Yeah, and for anybody who has not checked out Jack's stream, it's amazing. It's just fun. I think it's very casual. You have a very great vibe with your chat. I was just watching, I guess, your stream from yesterday, and it's just hilarious. Just like the random stuff that happens. They were like talking about heights, and people were sending in the metric system, and Jack was confused because
I
they don't
don't
use
do
metric system in the
conversions
states.
well at
So
all.
he's just like, "What does that mean?" It was like literally like 3 minutes of him like trying to figure out. He's like, "It's okay." And then he started playing on the floor, and then when he wanted to get up, he got a cramp,
Oh,
and it was just like this joke, and it just like, what's going on this stream?
yeah, that's
In a
one
good way.
that's one thing that I've had to take the approach of, because a lot of these Twitch musicians, they're career musicians. They've been
Mm-hmm.
involved, even if one of my friends, she's 23, but she's been singing and playing guitar and performing since she was 12. So you have these people that are career musicians, 5,
Mm-hmm.
10, 20 plus years, and I can't compare to them in terms of musical ability, but I feel like at least my experience as a broadcaster and doing some performances has helped me at least pick up the slack a little bit. So while we aren't going to be the next John Legend, we're gonna have a good time. That's kind of been my approach to things.
But Jack's being modest. He's a really good musician as well. His original song "No One Else" he played it last stream. I honestly that was like the highlight of the stream for me. I really enjoyed that song, Jack. Like, not just saying that.
That's really kind of you to say. I will say, like, songwriting, that's been something that's kind of been a wild experience for me, because I had people that were telling me after the first couple months, like, hey, like, do you have any original music? I was like,
Mhm.
no, why would I have original music? I don't do original music. And then just one day I was practicing at the park, and I was like, you know
Mhm.
what? I want to write something. So I kind of took a deep dive into songwriting again, without knowing what I was doing. I've never studied music theory or how to structure a good song, but we just kind of took the jump, and then I guess I've three originals to my name over the span of these months. So we're just learning as we go, learning as we go.
Jax, what's one thing you would like to achieve in your lifetime? And that's not limited to Twitch, just in general.
Um, hmm. Well, because this music thing has become such a big passion of
Mm-hmm.
mine, I want to keep keep running with this. Like I said, I didn't think when I first started streaming, I thought it would be something that could kill some time, kill some free time for a month until sports came back and I'd be back to work and everything would be peaches and cream. Obviously, that hasn't happened yet. But you know, since I've been running with this thing, it's become something I'm really passionate about, and I love it. And while I'm still have a lot to learn and a lot to improve on, one of my, I guess, goals is to release my own music. Like I've written a couple songs, but they're Twitch exclusive. So like if I could take this and get them recorded, mixed, mastered, have them out on Apple Music and Spotify, even if only 5 people listen to it, like just the fact that I went from someone that was not involved in music whatsoever a year ago, and then at some point in the future release my own stuff, like that would be something that I would be really proud of, I would say.
And final question is, what are some words of wisdom or just maybe like a saying you enjoy, Jack?
From a life perspective, the phrase "stand up and stand out" has always been big for me.
Okay.
Stand up more in a sense of you know, do what's good, do what's right. Whether it's dealing with people and you know, friends, coworkers, relationships, whether it's, you know, what you're doing for work or any of that stuff, to be a good human. You know, I really think being a good person is obviously important, but it's easy to say that and not do it. So to actually stand up is a big, and then to stand out. You know, you wanna excel in everything you do. So to, you know, again, whether it's work or hobbies or whatever you're doing in life, to strive to be dang good at what you're doing. And you don't have to be the best. You know, people are always like, oh, you know, you want to work till you're the best. You know, not everyone can be the best. But to really work hard and excel in what you're doing, whether that's in school or at your job or raising a family or, you know, negotiating a good deal on a house, like anything, you know, big or small, I would say to stand up and stand out is something kind of that I've lived by, and I think is good advice for all of us.
And Jack, can you just let everyone know where we can find you on Twitch and just, I guess, social media in general?
Oh yeah. So my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/Youngsub3. That's where I'm live 3 days a week. I'm not a huge social media guy. I'm really bad at Instagram. I love being on Twitter because that's where I get a lot of sports news.
Okay.
And Facebook I try to shy away from because a lot of Facebook is mostly just relatives and friends ranting about politics and religion, or a lot of ads about, you know, sunglasses and shoes. And stuff. But yeah, twitch.tv/Youngsub3 is where you can catch my music.
Awesome. Well, Jack, thank you so much for coming on. It was a blast hearing your stories and learning more about you. And like I said, check out his stream. You won't be disappointed. Great music and a good guy. So
thank you so much for having me too. Like this is a lot of fun. This is like my one of my first ever like actual interviews, like person to person. So this has been cool. So I appreciate you thinking of me and having me on.
Absolutely, my pleasure. Honestly, it was a blast. So, any parting words, Jack?
Not too much. Stand up and stand out, I guess.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe for new videos every Tuesday and Friday. And take care of yourselves. And I'll see you next video.